Hey guys, OGalbina here, bringing you guys another new league, but this time something a bit different. If you guys know me and you've been around the channel for a long time, you know, one, I'm a draft league player, but two, I play singles draft league. I'm a singles competitive player. It's the format that I thrive in and enjoy playing the most. However, the official competitive Pokemon for format is VGC or double battles, where you bring, you know, two Pokemon on each side and it's a 4v4 and a best of 3 format. Now, I'm not the biggest doubles guy in the world, but I have recently played in the Sacramento and Toronto regionals, and I really love traveling and competing and meeting up with friends that I've known through Draft League over the years. But there is a bit of a disconnect when it comes to the doubles format, and I personally don't have as much of a connection and as much enjoyment when I play it. But my good friend Liv reached out to me with this opportunity to play in a VGC Draft League, and I figured this would be a really cool way for me to potentially, one, learn the format and become a little bit better, because I did do pretty okay at the regionals, but obviously not great because it's not my traditional format. One, get better, but two, maybe develop a little bit more connections with the doubles format, and kind of easing it in with a format type that I'm, you know, invested in and have a ton of experience in Draft League. So we're going to be playing in a VGC Draft League. This is the WBG. This division in particular is commissioned by Liv and Hopeless, who is like the owner of the league in general. So big shouts to them. Thank you for inviting me and having me play in the league. I'm definitely excited. This is going to be a learning process. This isn't going to be the typical, you know, come in and make playoffs, potentially win a championship Draft League. I'm very inexperienced. I'm one of the not good players in this division, but that's also kind of what makes it exciting for me, right? This is something I'm not super familiar with, and I'm very excited to see how things go. Now, with that being said, we are going to do a quick draft analysis. I'm not 100% sure the information I'm going to be telling you is absolutely 100% correct. This is just what I thought when drafting and when I was drafting with friends and things like that, and kind of my approach. Now, is this the objective approach to VGC draft? Maybe not, but we'll learn as we go, right? It's just like when you draft your first singles team and it's, you know, absolutely terrible, but you think it's great. Maybe that's this team. Who knows? If you guys do enjoy this draft analysis and are excited for this upcoming season, be sure to drop a like on the video, as well as subscribe to the channel. We are on our way to 5,000 subs by the end of the year. I almost hit 3K, but we hit 3K since the last video I posted, so thank you guys so much. Hopefully by 2025 we can hit 5,000. If you want to help me out in reaching that goal, it starts today, right? This is the first upload of the new year. So yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into it. Now, going into the draft, I believe I had the 9th overall pick out of 12 people, so not the greatest in the world, but I wanted to grab a Pokemon that I've used in VGC and in singles before. I wanted to kind of bridge the gap by using Pokemon I was familiar with in both formats, and when it got to me, a Pokemon that maybe isn't the objective best Pokemon in doubles, but is really, really broken in singles, and I've used it in both formats, is going to be Chien-Pao. A great Pokemon in doubles, maybe not as broken as in singles, but its sort of ruin ability, lowering the defense of everything on the field, is not only great for it as a breaker, but for plenty of partners next to it, making them incredibly strong. And that's going to be kind of a theme with this, right? I'm not 100% sure on how to draft balance and how to draft like structured teams that cover each other defensively and things like that. But I do know that in doubles, at least the way I like to play is very hyper offensive and having different modes, having this mon with this mon and this mon in the back, or these two Pokemon synergizing completely and very well offensively. So I figured Chien-Pao was a great place to start. And then when round 2 came along, I grabbed probably the cover, you know, poster child for Chien-Pao, and that's going to be Dragonite. Good old Pow Knight. I think this score is obviously awesome. Obviously, Dragonite is a great Pokemon in VGC, and keep in mind too, the Terra rules in this league are everything can Terra at any time. I do have to tell my opponent my Terra types on every Pokemon I bring prior to the game, but Chien-Pao can Terra into that Ghost type to avoid fighting moves and Fake Out, but I can also Terra Normal that Dragonite. You either go with Inner Focus to block Fake Out and Intim, or I can go with Multi-Scale because this is draft and I don't have to kind of conform to the exact set that they're running in standard at the moment as well. So I think that's a really clutch aspect of this Dragonite. I think it can be a lot more versatile than it is in the standard format, but I can also just Herder, Choice Band, Terra Normal, E-Speed. When I played in Toronto, I actually got to play against Brandon Zhang, which was really cool, and he smashed my ass with an AVD Knight, which I thought was really cool as well. I think there's a lot of things that this guy can do, and I think it's a great piece, and Pow Knight's a great core. Now, in particular, when I played in Toronto, this is a Pokemon that I paired with Chien-Pao, and I really enjoyed this core a lot, and that is going to be Hisuian Arcanine. Now, I got a little bit of flack from a couple people for drafting this because I already have like the E-Speeder with D9 or with Pao and D9, but I think Arcanine's a lot more than that. Obviously, it can do that, right? Terra Normal E-Speed with Pao next to it, very, very strong. But I think Arcanine serves a much more defensive function. In Intim, obviously intimidating the other sides, getting an Intim on, I think is very, very nice in doubles, and at least forces different clear amulets and things like that, inner focuses. But I think defensively, this thing is great. I used Terra Dragon when I was playing because Ogerpon was really popular at the time, and it was great in the Ogerpon matchups and really, really helped me out. Obviously, those Sword of Ruin boosted Rock Slides and Flare Blitzes and Head Smashes are going to be very, very powerful, and I can Choice Band it, I can rock out with an AV, I can do a ton of different things with it, and I think it's, again, a very, very versatile Pokemon, and it also just adds another layer of scary, scary offense to the team, and pairs really, really well with our Chien-Pao, and I think that's a big way I want to kind of focus this team, is really overwhelming the opposing side. I have something like D-Knight that's going to avoid Intims and pressure teams, and I have something like Arcanine that's going to potentially slow down the other side, maybe make it to where my Pao can live a hit, maybe make it to where my D-Knight can live a hit a little bit better, you know, things like that. And it's not a Pokemon that requires Pao to function well, whereas D-Knight really does appreciate the Pao partner. So I think that's a pretty cool aspect of this. Again, take everything I say with a grain of salt, but it's something I'm definitely really excited about. Now, next up is a Pokemon I love in singles. Again, I think I drafted pretty much only Pokemon I love using in singles, but I got a Pokemon I think is also really solid in VGC draft, and the few replays I've seen of VGC draft, I've seen it doing really well, and that's going to be Ironjaxx. And the reason we drafted Ironjaxx here is it's kind of like a budget Roaring Moon to me. I really wanted a Tailwind aspect to this team. I think Tailwind is obviously really important to have. I think speed control in general, especially when I have such an offensive team, I need to make sure I have anti-Tailwind for the opposing Tailwinds is going to go up on my side. And with a booster speed, this thing, one, can get very, very bulky if invested correctly, especially with a more defensive Terra, but being able to Tailwind and Snarl and throw strong attacks too, potentially. Ironjaxx is not weak, but I really like that aspect of it. I think it's a great utility mon for this team. Obviously, I can Tailwind for something like D-Knight, Pao, Arcanine, and make them very fast and strong, but I can also lead a core of Ironjaxx plus Arcanine, and I can either Tailwind or I can Snarl into him and really, really weaken the opposing side and kind of damage or hamper their damage output into my side. Again, I think this is a Pokemon that's going to probably function a little bit more support oriented than it might on other teams, on this team in particular, but again, that doesn't mean it's weak and it's not going to hit very hard. It has incredible coverage, which I really think lends to a upside in Draft League in particular, and I'm really hoping it can kind of support our top three, but as well as our next couple Pokemon really, really well. Now, with our next Pokemon, we ended up grafting Metagross, more strong priority. You're going to see that's a big theme on this team. I really, really like the priority offense aspect of it. There's only one Indeedee on the other side, right? All season. And fun fact, we actually play against an Indeedee team week 1. But other than that, my priority is going to basically be free and very, very strong. Something like Metagross is really going to help out with that. Something I really like about it is I have a very glaring fairy weakness. Really, it's only Arcanine. A lot of fairies have means of hitting Arcanine very hard too. Metagross is going to be a great sponge into those fairies. It's also a great sponge into dragons and opposing dragon types on the other side. And it's a really, really strong Pokemon. I think it's great under Tailwind, but it's also very anti-Trick Room and can function very well into a lot of different Trick Room builds. It's a great benefactor of Terra. It's also Intim immune, so it's another physically offensive threat that can pair well with Pao that is Intim immune. And there's actually a Pokemon that I end up getting, not next round, though the next round pick does help out a lot, but the round after that I kind of thought of getting with Metagross in particular in order to really accent its strengths and things like that. So Metagross is going to come here, and I'm excited I got Metagross in at least one league, even if it's doubles. It's one of my favorite Pokemon in the world, so it's really cool to, you know, potentially get it right here, and hopefully it'll do well for us. I really do like it a lot here. But yeah, next up, I ended up grabbing Thwacky. You can look at my team. I don't have great ground resist. I have a couple ground immune Pokemon, which is obviously very, very nice, but I like the ground resist. I also don't have great water resist. This is a great water check and resist. It's also anti-terrain, so in that potential Indeedee matchup, and potentially like a weird Pincurchin matchup with some terrain mons and things like that, I think that's a great way of resetting. It can fake out, it can U-turn, it can support Pokemon like Metagross and Arcanine as well. Arcanine with an Intim and Grass Terrain up is going to live those Earthquakes, High Horsepowers, and Stomping Tantrums. He's not going to die to them. Metagross also really does appreciate that a ton. And there is obviously like a bulldoze mode. I think Thwacky gets bulldoze. I'm like 99% sure. I'm gonna double check that because I'll feel really, really stupid if Thwacky doesn't get bulldoze. And I said that. Thwacky with bulldoze. He doesn't. Oh my gosh. I'm pretty sure Rillaboom does. But regardless, the bulldoze is more so to proc Metagross weakness policy, which is what I was thinking. But that's going to be our next Pokemon, which is going to be Spectre. Now, what does Spectre do? If you look at my team, I am all physical offense outside of Jugu. Realistically. I mean, Metagross can go mixed. Dragonite can go mixed. But they're not going to. So I really like Spectre for the fast, specially offensive Pokemon that can really get out of hand really fast. Calm Mind, Will-O-Wisp sets are going to be great. You're not going to see typical Spectre counterplay in the sense of in singles you bring your bulky normal, your bulky dark or whatever. But now there are two Pokemon on the field. Both of them have to potentially deal with Spectre before it starts really snowballing. And I can obviously pair this alongside something that really checks those bulky normals and bulky darks and things like that. I think a lot of my offense will overwhelm that, which is great. But the main mode I really, really wanted to try out with this was going to be Spectre plus Metagross. I think that core is incredibly, incredibly strong, especially with Metagross potentially being able to tear up, but I really like the bulldoze aspect of Spectre, incredibly fast bulldoze into my Metagross, popping a weakness policy, and absolutely cleaving through teams. Maybe I Terra Steel after that, and I throw off incredibly strong +2 Terra Steel bullet punches and meteor mashes, especially after I hard out into POW and I get the Sword of Ruin drop. I mean, things are just going to absolutely drop when I click those buttons. So I really like that aspect of it. I think it's a very solid Pokemon, and I'm definitely excited about it. Next up, we end up grabbing Tortra. Once I got down to this end, I was kind of just looking for value in the lower tiers. I like Tortra plus Thwacky. I thought it was a pretty cool core. Potentially, Tortra getting a potential Shell Smash off could always be cool. It also gets access to Grassy Glide, so it's something that, you know, pairs well with Thwacky. It's a slower offensive threat, so again, it really helps me out in potential Trick Room matchups. And it's also a ground type on the team when I don't have great electric answers and ways of stopping offensive electric attacks coming into my team. And on top of that, I can also run with Headlong Rush sets to not be hampered by the grassy terrain if it is up, and have a strong single target ground move, which is great when you have things like Arcanine on the team, when you have things like Metagross on the team, when you have things like Chien-Pao on the team. If I don't want to break my own Sash or Terra Flying in that instance, it's going to be a really valuable option. So Tortra was a pretty cool pickup here. Naturally bulky Pokemon too, and just a good lower tier value mon. And then lastly, because I only needed one more minimum, I ended up grabbing some Trick Room / Anti-Trick Room and Duosion as a really, really bulky Pokemon that could at least reverse Trick Room or be a slow Trick Room threat in its own right, potentially Calm Minding up and being a big nuisance and being really bulky and annoying and things like that. Now, there is Item Clause in the league because we are playing with VGC rule sets, so I can't really bring Thwacky Duosion, which is a little bit annoying, but there is a potential Trick Room mode to this team with mons like Tortra and potentially Metagross, which could always be very, very clutch and a means of, you know, flipping the script because my team is very fast and offensive. I wanted an option to either reverse Trick Room or catch my opponent off guard and set Trick Room myself. So I thought that was pretty cool. Pretty darn bulky Pokemon too. Duosion doesn't really die, and with the option of Terra, we can always Terra outside of that. Psychic typing to our knockoff isn't absolutely nuking us. But yeah, other than that, it's just a solid low tier Pokemon. I like Duosion singles too. So again, it kind of keeps up the theme of using fun singles Pokemon. But yeah, that is going to be the team for this season of WBG. I don't plan on doing in-depth team builders here. One, because I'm in 2 other leagues, which I do want to do pretty in-depth team builders, and 2, I don't really have the knowledge right now. I'm really working hard in this league. I'm taking a ton of mocks. I'm getting a lot of help from people who are much more knowledgeable in the format than me. If you are a VGC player and you want to join the front office and help me out with mocks for this upcoming season, I would appreciate it a ton. I really am struggling and don't know what I'm doing, but that's the fun part. So I'm not going to do in-depth team builders. I'll probably show my team before the games, and then we'll just run into it. But it'll be a fun change of pace, right? I hope you guys enjoy it at the very least. Who knows, maybe this will be the only VGC league we do. Maybe we'll do a ton after this because I absolutely love it. Or maybe I'll get mad that I do bad and I'll do a ton until I'm good at it at least. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy this draft analysis and are excited for us to try VGC draft and the WBG season, again, drop a like, sub to the channel, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with another draft analysis. Later.